Hello teacups, what's brewing? Apologies for my absence. I did warn you it was going to happen, but I still feel a little bad. It's been a bit longer than I intended. Unfortunately, work got very crazy. And it always does kind of at the end of a quarter, the end of a term, with everything being moved forward. A lot of things got condensed down and we are where we are. Unfortunately, things got very, very busy. I did not have energy or time to put into any of my hobbies really, and that's what Chantal is to me. It's a hobby, and mostly I didn't really want to put energy into the mental side of considering her for a react, because by the time I got out of work, if I didn't just fall asleep on my bed, all I wanted to do was something mindless like an hour of Stardew Valley. So that's pretty much where I've been with things, and then coupled with just the sheer amount of content, let's be generous and call it content rather than footage, that she has put out, I just can't keep up, and I haven't been trying really. I had a few weeks there where I only really kept up with her with the occasional other reactor and quotes from Twitter. That's as far as I went. So I've got, very loosely, I've got the broad strokes of what was happening. I did, because my schedule calmed down this week a little bit, I gave myself a day or two, and then I tried to kind of get back into her and not watch every live because my God, but just try and sort of dip into her footage a bit more and say, oh, I've just called it footage instead of content. Whoops. Freudian slip. But just sort of get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and figure out where she is and what I thought about it, instead of relying on sort of the cuts from everybody else, because everyone has their own perspective on her, and so what they showcase is going to be a little different from what she puts out. So I tried doing that, and didn't work. There was too much. There was too much, you guys. I've seen bits. I've seen bits and pieces of her. And so what I'm going to do now, I was trying to find a live stream that I could straight react to, and then just kind of pass my thoughts a little bit and put them into the react, because most of the lives, as I can see it, have been pretty repetitive. So what applies to one frequently applies to another. But every time I'd look at something and think, okay, maybe this one, I'd get home and there'd be another 4, 5, 6 hours of content to wade through, and I was just like, no. So instead, here's what we're gonna do. I've put together just a few thoughts on some general themes of what's been coming up in her lives. I will not have every detail for you because I keep thinking, okay, no, I wanted to mention that, and then I have no idea where that piece of footage is because there's so much to wade through. But hopefully I can just hit a few of the key points as sort of a wading back into her channel. And then as I have some more time on my hands, hopefully I can keep up, probably not with everything, but cherry pick lives more or less to discuss sort of where she is. I am planning at the moment to go back to Saudi end of May, May 21st. My flight is scheduled at the moment. But after this maybe next week, I should have a lot more free time. We'll be on holiday for a little bit, and then we're mainly on administrative duties after that, because the students, it was decreed that they would finish school. So I should hopefully be less busy. But I've got some notes today because otherwise I'm not going to keep anything straight. So let's get into this. Just like I said, the amount of stuff we're seeing on her channel has been quite overwhelming. Recently her subscriber count has been going down, so I think the foodie fatigue has been widespread. So you will have a certain amount. She did say she was going to go back to pre-recorded videos this week, and she's since taken it back, which irritated me a lot because I find them a lot easier to manage. And on one hand I was like, please just go back to pre-recorded, and on the other hand, you can't believe most of what Foodie says, so it's not a surprise she didn't. But oh, I held on hope. I held on hope, you guys. But her subscriber count is coming down. And generally the people who were maybe holding out for the same thing, now that she's said no, have finally taken the jump to be like, nah, we're done, we're over. And I can't really blame them. Like I say, you get fatigued. So hence the subscribers. We will see if it continues. Currently, I think she's about, is it 500, 600 down, which compared to the total number of her channel isn't that much. But a lot of her viewers don't seem to be active viewers when you compare her subscriber to her view count on her videos. Her views have been down on the lives because a lot of people just can't invest that amount of time. It is a full-time job within itself. But given how many she's put out, I'd imagine she's kind of balancing it in terms of the earnings. Because if she was doing one video a day before that got, let's say 40,000 views, between 30 and 40,000, and now she's doing 3 live streams that get maybe 15,000, 10 to 15, I'm guessing it about evens out. So maybe she doesn't care. Maybe as the subscriber count goes down, those views will drop off because the newness of it is sort of dropping off. We don't know. Time shall tell. And if she cares enough, she'll change it. But at the moment, her reason for not changing was literally nothing goes on in my life, which basically she's too lazy to think of any other content. That's how I was reading that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm being harsh. She's too lazy to come up with any other content. Next topic, the men. Jesus Christ. I am over the Tinder era. I am over this. At first I was like, no, you go out and get it. Like, COVID notwithstanding. Everything I'm saying is COVID notwithstanding because it's a goddamn pandemic and maybe this isn't a good idea right now. But in terms of the idea of I'm horny, I'm a little bit lonely, I'm going to go out and get some, I think it's your body, your right, your business. Go do it. I have no judgment on people who do that. However, she seems very, very confused about what it is she wants from this experience. And I think we touched on this. I can't remember the last react I did. But I think we touched on this last time where she is presenting a very different picture than she's actually wanting. And what she wants changes day to day. She keeps trying to convince herself, no, I just want some sexy time. And then being like, no, essentially, I want all the benefits of a relationship and the care of a boyfriend, but I don't want to be held to any of the expectations of a relationship. She wants the responsibilities, which is none of a hookup, but the benefits of a relationship on the partner's side. But she doesn't want to be held responsible for that or connected to that. And that's a little unrealistic, and I think she's going to struggle so long as she has not clarified her expectations in her own head, let alone to the person. She did get ghosted a few times. Again, from the story she was telling, she texted them a lot. She told one dude off and then was shocked that he blocked her. I get the men confused. I can't remember which is which, but she seems pretty full on until it gets to the point of, all right, so let's have sex. And then she backs the fuck off because she doesn't really have the confidence to back up the lifestyle she's claiming she wants to lead. So she never goes through with it. And that's a really mixed message. I mean, we've seen her flip-flop on all sorts of issues on her channel. So it's not surprising that it would extend into this. The idea of something appeals more to her than the reality of something. And we've seen that many times. And so when the opportunity does arrive, if we are to believe 10% of what she's told us, when the opportunity does arrive, she doesn't take it. Even though she's saying, no, that's all I want. And it's difficult for guys in that case as well, because you're saying, okay, no, I just want to hook up. And then you are, harassing is the wrong word, but you're very full on with your communications, but not following through. So the men you're attracting, which are people who aren't looking for relationships and are just looking for a hookup, because that's what you're essentially selling. I'm not, money notwithstanding, but that's what you're presenting. Don't want the hassle of someone who's just going to hound them through the phone and not deliver. And those who maybe are looking for a relationship get blocked immediately because she claims she doesn't want that. So it's a difficult position for everyone to be in, and I think everyone's going to end up being disappointed. But she is getting the ability to laugh off how ridiculous men are and show how many opportunities she's had, which I think is doing something for her mentally. So I guess she's getting what she wants out of it, mentally if not physically. That does lead me to the Croatian dude though. This seems to be the current flavour of the day. She's mentioned him a few times in the last day or so, I think. Croatian dude, maybe interesting to me is a bit of an overstatement, but is interesting to me simply because he's not in Canada. And I think that's where the real appeal comes for Foodie, because the immediate issue of, well, he's actually going to want me to follow through on these things I'm saying I want, is gone. It's a lot safer for her physically and mentally to have this guy on the string, essentially, who she's got no pressure to actually deliver on. And it has led to a lot of talk of her Eurobeasing and wanting to do a European trip, and apparently this is happening. And I remember the Dominican Republic and you didn't make it there. So what you think has changed, I'm not entirely sure. Here's the thing, I would love to see her go travelling. I'd love to see her expand her life in any way. It's very difficult with COVID right now, but at some point in the last month or two, she has admitted that she hadn't gone travelling. She hadn't been on a plane, I want to say since 2003 or 2004. So what was stopping you before? Because we know for the last few years at least, if we're to go by her information, she has had the financial means to do so, because she had a settlement with one of her employers at some point that left her very comfortable. If we're going by the information she has presented us. I don't know how true it is, but that's what she's told us. So if she had wanted to get on a plane and do whatever with her time, do something, do nothing, she had the opportunity and she didn't take it. And how self-conscious she is around people, the physical limitations of her body, they've only gotten worse from the beginning of her channel to the current state of her channel. So I don't think the chances of her getting on a plane are getting any higher. And so this idea, as much as I actually think it's a great one, I think she should travel, I think she should expand her horizons, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it is a dream, and for her, dreaming of the possibility that could happen is just as good as doing it. So she can pretend she's gonna, you know, fly around the world and have a lover in every country, and that satisfies the need in her head to think, well, I could do this one day, so that's good enough. But actually getting around to doing it, I think this is another grand plan that she tends to make whenever she's losing weight or trying to lose weight, which is another thing she's been discussing, kind of showing a little bit more of. She lost the 30 pounds. She claims to have lost the 30 pounds. She was quite excited. I did believe her, whether it's accurate or not, but I did believe her. And she has been walking more, which has been great. I've been really happy to see her walking. I don't think the walking is necessarily enough to impact the amount she's burning off that much. She does very little of it, and then, you know, on the way there she has Starbucks, and on the way back she gets food, which is the real motivation here. But she does seem to be a lot more open to being more active, and I have seen a change in attitude there a little bit, which has been so good to see, because whether the impact of the calories she's burning is anything significant, statistically relevant, shall we say, exercise does more than burn calories, and losing weight is the very least of what exercise can do for you. And she was in such danger of being entirely housebound that seeing her moving at all has been amazing, and I hope she continues, because she really needs to. She's got so many issues that basic movement will just help to hold off, and I was really happy to see it. Her food, unfortunately, still seems to be utter bullcrap. Like, the crap she is eating. However, it does seem to be a smaller amount than it has been in the past. I'm not sure I could necessarily call it better, but at least less. I realise that's a very, very low bar she's tiptoeing over, but nonetheless, she is tiptoeing over it. But that has led to kind of the rise of the THC era, which has been the other big talking point with her. Here's the thing. If I'm remembering the timeline correctly, which I might not be, it's all kind of blurring into one. The rise of the THC this time, because she has had times when she's been going quite hard on it before, really coincided with her Ozempic kicking in. So I think it is just straight, I'm not getting whatever mental benefit I got from the food before, and therefore I am searching for that elsewhere. That is how I read that. Because she's still eating. She's still determined to eat the kind of crap she always eats, despite the fact that she says more often than not that it makes her feel sick afterwards. She doesn't seem to enjoy the food that much after the first bite. And I really think whatever mental hole the physical food fits, I think it's not fitting so well just recently. And so she's searching for a better way to get that hit that food used to give her, or is giving her in a lesser quantity now. So that's really why I think we've seen her going nuts on THC. Also, it gives her content. It doesn't give her particularly good content, it's hard to follow, but it gives her a structure of, I'm going to do it, I'm going to go live, and then the next day I'm going to go, oh, I was so high. I'm so cool, you guys. You know, and I don't particularly like the content, but it gives her something to do nonetheless. It does two things, one of which I think is completely gross, and the other I think can be interesting occasionally. The thing it does in terms of lowering her inhibitions, as much as she has any, is that she does overshare. And she's always been an oversharer, that's not a surprise for Chantal, but she's oversharing other people's information. She's been playing voice notes on her channel that I do not think should be shared. They were sent to her with the impression that they would be private and they should not be broadcasted onto YouTube. I think that is a huge violation of the person's privacy, and I don't think it should be happening, and that's as much as I have to say about it. The other thing it does, which is occasionally interesting, is that it does lead her to say things that I think, were she in a less altered state, she would perhaps hide. So we tend to get more information than she sometimes intends to give. One of those things, in speaking of the Croatian guy, so she had been called out by a lot of her audience for picking up her phone and driving with no hands on the wheel so she could order food while driving. Now, obviously distracted driving is a dangerous thing, but the argument I guess she's had before is that her phone is on her hands-free and she won't read the chat. I still think she gets pretty distracted by it. She's not entirely focused on the road, let's put it that way. But in that case, she was literally ordering food on her phone while in her car and it was moving. And that wasn't okay. Now, she did acknowledge that it was wrong, which was, I want to say something, but if it leads to no behaviour change, doesn't matter if you acknowledge it or not. I don't think so. But here's the thing, with the guy, she has occasionally been losing signal on the hill where she walks. And when she came back and went live again, she said, oh, I spoke to this guy for a couple of hours on my phone and then I came home. And she was very careful to say, and then she came home, because she'd been dinged on this recently. So the heavy implication was, I was not driving while doing this. I waited, I had the conversation, and then I drove home. But then later, when she's feeling a bit looser and we're hearing a few more things, she said, oh, I spoke to him for a couple of hours on the way home, which to me, and this could just be me reading way too much into it, I wasn't there, you guys. To me, makes me think, okay, so you were driving then, and that's not the same thing. And I don't know, it stuck out to me because it didn't match what she'd said before. So I think she was just voice noting this guy as she was driving, which, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. She's not the world's most careful driver, let's put it that way. Didn't she hit a rabbit recently as well, which may be nothing to do with distracted driving, but was gross. Because I just remember watching a point when she was like, oh, that rabbit fur's all over the front of my car. And I was like, oh, no, don't tell me that. But anyway, so that's my belief, right or wrong. Let me see. Oh, something that she has mentioned a couple of times just in passing, and again, in terms of little bits of information we get, she's been avoiding her doctors again. She did mention, and this irritated me a little bit because it's just such a waste of resources. She was meant to go to a skin doctor, or maybe a regular doctor because the skin doctor didn't have an answer. She was meant to see somebody about the problem she's got with her skin on her legs. And she made an appointment and she said on camera at some point, oh, it's tomorrow, I've got to go. She wasn't excited. And then the next day admitted that she hadn't gone. So if that's less than 24 hours, I can't believe for a second she called and cancelled that appointment. And even if she did, that's too late, really. I was about to say too soon. That's too late, really, to get anyone else in, which is just such a huge waste of time. If you're not going to go, at the very least, give them enough time to replace you in that appointment. Because especially during the COVID times, it's hard for people to get appointments and they deserve to be able to use them efficiently and effectively. And it's preventing that when you just don't turn up. She did also, she's made a few points where she said, oh, I'm not testing my blood. Oh, fuck that. No, I haven't been taking my puffer, although we've seen her take it since. But she's just not taking care of the things she needs to take care of. She's got a puffer. There's no reason for her not to be taking it every day. And she's like, oh, I forget. Well, then set a goddamn alarm and be an adult, because this is you breathing. Like, how are you not more concerned about that? This is you breathing, and you're already abusing your numerous health conditions by vaping. And you know, how are you not at the very least taking the medicine you have there with you in your house? Now, like I said, she did go on to show herself taking it more often, but the same with her blood sugar. She's been like, oh no, I haven't tested it. It's just an avoidance thing. She's been avoiding everything. We haven't heard anything about her therapist recently. I would put a large amount of money on the fact that she hasn't been going, because if one thing goes, everything goes. She's not going to be avoiding something like a skin doctor and then going to her therapist. That's not how that's going to correlate. So THC just seems like it's an escape. She hates is too strong a word. She's shown a lot of dissatisfaction with her life. Just through comments like, I hate domestic life, I hate being stuck, I want to go, I want to escape. And she's presented those sentiments before, the idea of escaping when she'd do all her night drives. She just wants to leave her own life, but the problem is she takes herself with her, and that seems to be the problem. The problem is internal, not external, so you go everywhere with the problems. And it's within her power to change, but she's not changing it. So we're seeing an escape into THC just like we'd see an escape into a car, into a drive-through. It's hitting the same buttons mentally for her. And it's not going to help, but it can make it a lot worse if you end up having a problem that needs to be addressed that you're not addressing with your professionals because you're trying to escape your entire life. That's about everything I have just on the general points. There were some other little points. One big one was Pete's. Pete's recently mentioned that he was on it was his name on the lease of the place, on the tenancy agreement, I'm guessing. Which, Pete's, I'm not, my dude, I'm not Pete's biggest fan, let's put it that way. But I would have concerns about that, my goodness. And yeah, it was very much a screw you guys, she couldn't kick me out if she tried. Yeah, but she could pack up and leave you in the shit because it's your name on the lease. Like, do I think she would do that? I'd like to think not. I'd like to think no. That she would respect her friend enough to be like, I'm not going to leave him in that situation. Because I think if the situation were reversed, Pete would not leave her in the lurch. He avoids confrontation wherever he can, but I think he'd stick it out even if he wasn't happy and he moved back in with his mom or he agreed to not renew a lease. I don't think he would just leave her. But I could see Foodie working herself up into a state and rage quitting her apartment. Or I could see, even if it didn't get to that point, because Pete tends to be very non-confrontational in his day-to-day life, for all he talks a good game on Twitter and the internet. I could see her having a great idea for how she was going to change her life and just disappearing. And, you know, I'd be very worried and I would have thought twice about that. Let's put it that way. Her apartment continues to be a mess. If she's saying it needs cleaning, I'm guessing it's awful. We haven't seen her in the kitchen for a while, which I think is a good thing. Because, for example, she was on last night, night before, who the hell knows, just being like, this food is taking ages, I'm so hungry. But saying she didn't want to be in the kitchen. So that means instead of reaching over to the fridge, opening a number of whatever's in the fridge and eating that while she waits, she's sitting in the living room eating. Not eating. Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying. More coffee. So in one way, the incidental kind of mindless calories that she consumes, and there's usually quite a lot between like waiting for meals, is reduced at least. But the state that kitchen must be in, and frankly the state her living room must be in, because if she's moved to the living room, all the peripheral garbage that she takes with her is going to have moved with her. So it's just going to be spreading and getting bigger. So I personally would have trouble living in that mess. And it's clear at the moment she's not comfortable in her environment. But she's been, more than anything, overwhelmingly lazy with her content, with her life, with her responsibilities. And so we're not seeing any changes. She's saying, oh no, I know I need to do that, but she's not actually doing it. So there we go. I think that is everything I wanted to talk about. I covered most of the broad strokes. I'm sure I've missed some nuance. I'm sure I've missed some bits and pieces with everything and her stories. But you guys, there's only so much I can take. And I can't take much more of this Tinder crap, quite frankly. So I'm covering it in its barest bones. Like I said, the channel should hopefully be getting back to more or less normal pretty soon, because I'll have more time. We do have a short holiday coming up, and then I'll be on mainly administrative duties, and then I should be back both in Saudi and onto summer. So I should have a lot more time on my hands and can just be a bit more regular here. Thank you for everyone who has been patient with me, but I mean, sometimes real life has to happen, and so this goes on the back burner. I apologise if anyone was waiting for the content. I appreciate anybody who's here for it, and God willing, anyone willing at this point, it doesn't need to be God, any higher power willing, Chantal herself will get onto a more balanced schedule and we'll start seeing less of this, which does not seem like a healthy term for her despite the healthy habits she's trying to showcase, and more just back to her pre-recorded content. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye everybody.